Hello, everyone. This is Everyday Evangelism. This is a class that we're doing at O'Fallon Church of Christ every Wednesday night for the foreseeable future, starting at 7 p.m. My name is Scott Kelly. I am the teacher of the class, and this is an audio recreation of the first third of the class that we unfortunately lost due to technical difficulties. We didn't have any audio for it. So this is the first third of that class. After this audio recreation segment, we will be cutting you to the video of the actual class. And these recordings for Everyday Evangelism will be primarily the recordings that we have from the class that we have every Wednesday night. So you'll be able to take that class along with us at the same speed as everyone else. We definitely don't want you to miss anything, because this is some pretty important stuff and it's exciting stuff. And I think you're going to find this class very indispensable for you. So, without further ado, let's go on. This is our first session called Getting into the Driver's Seat. For the first few weeks, we are going to be going over the book Tactics by Greg Koukl. In this part, we're going to lead into what we're going to call our first tactic, and that is called the Columbo tactic. All right, so before we get into that, though, however, this class, Everyday Evangelism, is going to teach you, first off, how to maneuver comfortably and graciously in conversations with others about your Christian convictions and values. And the second thing it's going to do is it's going to teach you the art of maintaining appropriate control. And this is what we're going to call from here on out just keeping you in the driver's seat. All right? And you want to stay in the driver's seat in the discussions that you have with others about matters pertaining to the faith, matters pertaining to the worldview that we share as Christians. So, this is a question that I kind of led the class off with. It's a more interactive segment, but I will go ahead and ask the question now. So I want you to kind of think about this, and feel free to pause the video. Just kind of give yourself like a little breather to really kind of think about this question, because it is an important question, and it's important to know where we stand when we start this course. So, question is, when I think about discussing Christianity with non-believers, I relish the encounter, I'm willing but nervous and uncertain, it scares me but I try anyway, or I avoid it as much as possible. Now, just to give you some heads up, most of the class fell within the second and third option. I'm guessing that you may as well. And those options are: I'm willing but nervous and uncertain, and it scares me but I try anyway. If you fall into those categories 2 and 3, and again, most people did in the class, that's okay, and that is why we are teaching this class. You don't need to feel any guilt about being nervous about these kinds of conversations, because in this day and age, I think it's legitimate if you have any caution about kind of starting these conversations. But this class is designed to teach you to not be so nervous and uncertain, to rely on God during these conversations, because our goal is to teach you how to emulate Jesus in the conversations that he had with others. So anyways, no right or wrong answer here, but my personal goal is to get you kind of close to that first option. I relish the encounter. I am always thankful and always, gracious when I get these encounters. But I will admit that, there is a certain amount of, being nervous, uncertain of where it's going to go, just because that's the future. It's like we don't know what's going to happen of this. But that's where we should be throwing our trust in the Lord to steer us through that. So, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. Talking about goals for this session, this particular session, so this class, we got 4 of them. All right. We want to learn the value of tactics. We want to define tactics and distinguish tactics from strategy. There is a difference. We want to explore the potential dangers of tactics. What happens if we use these things wrongly? Because we are human. We're kind of bound to do that from time to time. And then towards the end, or for the second part, I should say, not towards the very end, but second part, we want to introduce the first tactic. So I want to go ahead and lead with this because I believe that this verse is very important. And then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." This is what we're talking about here. This is taken from this section titled The Great Commission from Matthew 28. This is what we have been charged with by the Son of God himself, Jesus Christ. This is important stuff. This is some of the most important stuff that we will be doing in our lives. And I wanted to just kind of remind us of this by showing us the full passage here. Because as we go and make disciples of all nations, Jesus is going to be there with us as we keep going. Again, we are not doing this on our own, but this is important enough that we should be doing it, regardless of how nervous we feel. So, let's move along here. As we take the role of being ambassador of Christ to those who are lost, who don't believe, who haven't quite received the truth of reality yet, of that we subscribe to with Christianity. Ambassadors have 3 essential skills. These are very important. First one is knowledge, the second one is wisdom, and the third one is character. So these skills play a part in every effective engagement with a non-believer. But the second skill, this is the more artful one, all right, number 2 here, what we call wisdom. There's another kind of term for it, it's more artful method, tactical wisdom, all right, kind of keep in tune to what book we're studying from here. This is the focus of this course, wisdom. Knowledge, you gain knowledge by studying the Bible. You gain knowledge by listening to the word preached. Character, again, character comes with wisdom, but you already do kind of have a character about yourself. If you are conducting yourself properly as a Christian, character is definitely going to it's necessary, but each one of these has to do with the other. If you take one out, the whole system falls apart. And I guess on that note, I think it's kind of interesting that there's 3 skills here, when we're talking about being an ambassador for a Trinitarian God. I think that's kind of interesting. So, all right. Tactics are more distinct from strategy. All right. I know we've been talking about tactics here. And strategy involves the big picture, the large-scale operation of one's positioning prior to engagement. All right. So I use the term strategy in reference to the resources and knowledge that we have available to us to be adequately prepared to give an account for the hope that is in us. You look at 1 Peter 3:15, and again, I believe that kind of goes into that first number there, knowledge. Um, in our case, Christianity has strategic superiority. It is well positioned, so to say, on the battlefield um, of ideas, because our ideas can hold up under serious scrutiny compared to other views. We have an excellent case. As Christians, we have an excellent case. We have the best case. We have the best answers to life's most important questions. It's just learning how to convey that to other people. That is the hardest part for us on the whole. So I want to continue on by giving you a quote here from Hugh Hewitt from the book In But Not Of. It is not the Christian life to wound, embarrass, or play one-upmanship with colleagues, friends, or even opponents, but it is common vice that anyone can easily fall into. In this day and age, where we're so driven by fast-paced blurbs that you have not only just on our news on the television, but especially online. Too many people want the takedown approach, or the jabs or quips that you see in various pundit circles. And this isn't just for it's not just on the Republican side. It's not just on the Democratic side. It's all sides do this. All sides do this now. Thinking about conversations pertaining to faith, pertaining to worldview, pertaining to getting to the truth. If we think of those as just challenges, like debates, okay, we're trying to take down an opponent, all right? This is unbecoming of the Christian. We need to be building up relationships and not just winning arguments. When discussing controversial issues, be careful not to resort to slick rhetoric, all right? The empty slogans, the loaded words, the ridicule, the name calling, all right? This is misleading, it's unkind, and for someone who is a critic of Christianity already, this isn't going to persuade them of anything otherwise, all right? So, use a reasonable argument instead, okay? In order to employ tactics, you have to think actively. You have to give good attention, good mental attention to what is going on around you. What is going on in this conversation? What is the person saying? You have to be on it. The approach resembles a one-on-one basketball more than chess. I know, the cover of the book when I showed you, it was, had chess pieces on there and everything, but in reality, it's more of a basketball game, all right? There's constant motion, there's adjustments, adaptation, and really, I say basketball, but really any sport is like this. It's just fluid, all right? The technical approach requires as much careful listening as it does shrewd response, all right? So, let's take a look at 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 24 to 25. This is another crucial piece of scripture that I believe we need to take heed of before we dive in further. The Lord's bondservant must not be quarrelsome, but be kind to all, able to teach, patient when wronged, with gentleness correcting those who are in opposition, if perhaps God may grant them repentance, leading to the knowledge of the truth, and they may come to their senses and escape from the snare of the devil, having been held captive by him to do his will. If you've noticed, we're looking at more of passages here. We're not looking at specific verses. I believe it's important to let the Bible speak for itself in its proper context. So when we're doing this class and we want to extract an idea from Scripture, we need to look at the whole to determine if this is something that we can apply to our teaching. I believe this one is extremely important to what we're teaching. When we're talking about not thinking of these conversations as a debate, We must not be quarrelsome. We have to be kind in what we're doing. Okay, so no takedowns, no jabs, no quips, no nothing like that. We have to be patient when we're wronged. So if someone else decides to do that stuff to us, we have to be patient with them. We have to be gentle with them as we're correcting them, because one of the most important things to remember about this is that the people that we talk to that don't share our worldview, or they're suppressing it out of unrighteousness, this is the work of the devil. And as you know, they're not able to come to their senses. We have to realize that there is a war going on outside of us, and indirectly the war is being waged, but also directly in the conversation that you're having. There's many fronts going on here, and while you should not conduct your conversation in a warlike manner, you have to be knowledgeable about the fact that, or aware, I should say, about the fact that there is a war that is being waged, and you do have a part in it, and it's really important to play the role that our Father has commanded us to play, and as His Son demonstrated to us how to play. All right, so 10-second window. All right, this was an exercise that we did in class, where we paired up and considered the following real-world scenarios. I offered 2 scenarios, and we were able to kind of talk with partners about what we would say if this scenario was presented to us. All right, so for example, here's the scene. All right, it's the night of your weekly small group, and during the discussion, one of the week's sermon, a friend of yours in the group says, "Well, I think the essence of Christianity is loving God and neighbor. Shouldn't we love those outside of Christianity? After all, who's to say Christianity is better than any other religion? Don't all religions teach basically the same thing? Don't judge and love your neighbor?" So the challenge with this is you are concerned about your friend's statement. You want to say something, but you're also concerned about preserving your good relationship. All right? No one else is speaking up. And again, this is a small group setting, and you only have a few seconds before you lose the opportunity to represent God's view on other religions. What are you going to say? All right? What's the first thing you would say to this? And it doesn't need to be like the right thing. Just like from your gut, what would you say if this happened? The second one, whereas the first scenario that we just looked at was essentially about religious pluralism, the second one I offered everyone to think about was about a more cultural or societal issue. All right. Here's the scene. Okay, it's November 2003. You're waiting for the university shuttle with a friend, and this friend says, "Did you hear that Bush signed that partial birth abortion ban? He didn't even have any women present when he signed the bill. He'll never understand. I wish he would just stay out of women's issues." All right, so the challenge here, if you couldn't pick up on it already, you didn't know your friend cared about abortion until now. All right, you're concerned about keeping the conversation productive while being sensitive to the fact that there are other shuttle riders who are listening in to your conversation. All right, what can you say in response? So think about that. Pause the video, and then we'll pick up with the next area here. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and let myself take over from last Wednesday night's class, and we're going to pick up on the video and talk about what our first tactic is going to be. This first tactic is actually called the Columbo tactic, and let's just see what I have to say about that. So this tactic is called the Columbo tactic. Y'all know that guy?
Columbo. TV show Columbo, right? So those of you who know Columbo, what is his like trademark? One more thing. One more question. Okay. All right. You know, the rumpled trench coat, the bedhead, the stub of cigar, all right? He looks like this guy couldn't get himself out of a wet paper bag. All right? But while putting his foes at ease with this harmless demeanor he has, he employs this trademark approach. I got a problem. Something about this bothers me. You know, you're a very intelligent person. Maybe you can clear this up for me. You mind if I ask you a question? All right? And as they go on, he's, oh, just one more thing. You know, he kind of keeps it going, the questioning, all right? This is the habit that we want to get into, asking questions, all right? Now, I tried desperately to, like, find some other example other than Columbo, but I couldn't. Couple reasons. I was thinking, like, oh, maybe Sherlock or, you know, some kind of detective. But this character just really nails it, all right? This is how we're going to go about doing this, all right? So, asking questions, very important, okay? This is the key to the Columbo tactic. Go on the offensive in a disarming way with carefully selected questions to productively advance the conversation, all right? Guideline is simple. If you hit a roadblock, ask a question. That's it, all right? Never make an assertion when a question can make the same point. You make an assertion, you're giving them more than they really need, all right? And with planning and practice, this tactic can become second nature, all right? Questions are good because they're interactive. They make headway in the conversation. They shift the burden of proof. We'll get into that in a little bit. But they also put you in the driver's seat. You ask questions, you're in charge of the conversation, okay? So this is more flexible and adaptable than any other tactic we're going to learn. It's easily combined with other tactics. And it's the simplest one imaginable to stop someone who is challenging your worldview or the Christian worldview in their tracks, okay? Turns the tables, gets them thinking, all right? And it's really almost an effortless way to get you in the driver's seat, all right? So, 3 purposes of the Columbo tactic: gain information, reverse the burden of proof, and then indirectly exploit a weakness or flaw in the person's thinking, okay? So, there's a quote here, a really good quote. Again, it's from Hugh Hewitt. He says, ask at least a half dozen questions in every conversation, all right? This skill at inquiry will immediately mark you as different and attractive. When you ask a question, you're displaying interest in the person asked, okay? And in most settings, this is a great boon to the pride and self-worth of the person being asked, okay? So most people are not queried on many, if any, subjects, and their opinions are not solicited, okay? To ask them is to be remembered fondly as a very interesting and gracious person in their own right, okay? When you develop this habit of asking question, it's going to give you advantages in almost any kind of setting, okay? An alert, here's another quote here, an alert questioner can judge when someone grows uneasy, but don't stop, just change directions, okay? So the first application here, gain information. Sometimes you just need more information to know how to get further in the conversation. The simplest way is to use this Columbo tactic, okay? When used this way, the questions can be a casual conversation starter. It can buy you time to kind of think of something or an answer. It can help you know how to proceed in the conversation. And it can give you information for this encounter and future encounters that come after that with this person, all right? So, talking about the Columbo tactic, talk about how he asks all these kind of questions. Well, what questions should we ask? You know, is there like a list, or is, well, there's one really good one, okay? And you can adapt this one to whatever conversation that you're doing. It's just like use another way to say it. And that question is, what do you mean by that? All right? What do you mean by that? Asking this clarifies what a person thinks, okay? You deliver it in a mild, genuinely inquisitive fashion. Those two words kind of hard to say together. So what do you mean by that? Or what? That's interesting. I never really thought of that before. What do you mean by that? Just be genuine about it. Don't be, what do you mean by that? No, that's not what you want to do. Okay? Be genuine with this question. And it forces the person to be precise in his or her meaning. You're talking about slogans don't do us any good, right? Slogans, they're hardly even one-dimensional, okay? So someone says a slogan to you, you ask them, well, what do you mean by that? Well, now they got to explain the slogan. And you can just sit back and listen as they try to explain it, okay? So let's go ahead and see this tactic in action, all right? I'm not going to role play here, but we do have a couple of things. I'll show you kind of how it works, all right? So here's one. There is no God. How will we use the Columbo tactic when someone says this? What do you mean by God? All right. When someone says there is no God, you ask them, what do you mean by God? If they mean an old man with a beard who sits on a throne and out in space or whatever, and well, Christians don't believe in that God either. Okay? So, by asking what do you mean by God, we got to be on the same page. What do they think about God? Oh, that's not what we think about God either. I'm with you on that. See, you're building a relationship. You're building a rapport with the other person. You can agree on something. Always good to find out where you can agree in a conversation. All right? Here's another one. All religions are basically the same. Sound familiar? Yeah? Kind of just did that one, didn't we? So when someone says all religions are basically the same, in what way are they basically the same? The point here is not to determine if there are any similarities between religions. There often are, okay, just being honest, but whether the similarities are weightier than the differences, okay? What ways are they basically the same? That really clarifies it, and kind of forces them to give a little more evidence for their claim, for their statement, okay? So, here's another one. You shouldn't force your views on me. You heard that one before? I think everyone in this day and age has heard this one before. So, when someone says you shouldn't force your views on me, specifically, how am I forcing my views on you? I don't want to force anything on you. Like I want to get to know you, or you're my friend. I want to force anything on you. Why do you think I'm forcing my views on you? Can you explain to me how you think I'm doing that? All right. That's just your interpretation. All right. This is an interesting one. I get this one a lot. All right. I've got this one from fellow Christians. Okay. Remember, this isn't just for unbelievers. This stuff can be used for any conversation you're in. All right. So that's just your interpretation. All right. Well, what do you mean by just? Okay. Although you are giving your interpretation, okay, your understanding of the true meaning of the text, okay, you are giving your interpretation, but you need to find out if they believe all interpretations are equally valid and yours is just one of them. Okay, and that's what this question kind of gets at. All right, what do you mean by just? Reincarnation was taken out of the Bible. Heard that one before? All right. What do you mean it was taken out? What do you mean reincarnation was taken out? So here you're trying to determine how someone removes lines of text from the thousands of handwritten documents circulating around the Mediterranean region in just the first 4 centuries. Okay? So, what do you mean it was taken out? That's a very big claim. All right? The Bible has changed over the years. It's not what it was back when they first wrote it. You can't really can't really trust where this is going. The Bible's been changed over the years. How do you think it's been altered? Okay, well, now they just said a slogan. How do you think it's been altered? Okay, where's your proof for this? Have you looked at this stuff? What do you know about how it has been changed over the years? What's your understanding of this? How do you think it's been altered? You need to find out if they are familiar with the process of the written transmission of the ancient text, or if they're just repeating something that they've heard. All right? And I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the latter. All right? They're just repeating something that they heard. One last one here. Kind of have two for this one. How could God exist with all the evil in the world? There's so much of it. If you believe in a loving God, how can evil even exist? Okay? I'll toss that one to you guys. How would you use Columbo tactic with this one? Go ahead and raise your hand. What is evil? Good job. There you go. Right. Yep. I mean, you definitely have that line of thought out. I would definitely wait for them to answer, though, when you say, what do you mean by evil? Because when you think of all this stuff out in advance, it's like, well, great, you have a great path for that if it follows every single check mark, for that conversation. But you don't always know what they're going to say, all right? Again, we can look at, well, what do most people say about this stuff? But again, you're trying to build a relationship with this person, okay? This person has to speak for themselves. This way you just got to step back, ask the questions, and let them define what they think, who they are. Did you have a hand up? That's a good one. Not what I had. Not what I had, but it is very true. Someone could be like a deist or something like that. And it's like, okay, I believe there's something out there. I don't know what it is, but the Christian God, you claim this Christian God is really loving and everything, but there's all this evil. It's like maybe they agree that, some supreme being created everything in the universe and created us and all this stuff, but they might not think that supreme being has anything to do with us anymore. Okay? So, it is a good one, though. It is a good one. Here's one. What, in your mind, is the conflict with this? Between God and evil. What is a conflict? Okay? So, the question of evil, it doesn't provide evidence against God. Okay? It actually gives evidence in favor for him. God has to exist to provide the absolute standard by which evil is measured. Okay, so you have to ask them, like, what is the conflict here? And by asking this, they're able to define God. They're able to define evil on their terms, and then you can handle it that way. All right. So, skip forward here a little bit. A couple of important points. In each case, have them spell out the objection. Okay. First Columbo question accomplishes 5 important objectives. Okay. First, it immediately engages a non-believer in an interactive way. Okay. It's a two-way street. We're not just two different heads just blabbling at each other and yelling at each other. It's not that. Okay. It's interactive. Second, it flatters a non-believer because it shows genuine interest in their view. Okay. Oh. Guy's actually asking me what I think. This is new. Okay. Or they could be nervous. Oh, this guy's actually asking me what I think. Oh, I got to come up with something. So, yeah. It's still going to flatter them, though. They're going to remember that you actually cared enough to ask what they're thinking. All right? Third, it forces the non-believer to think more carefully, more precisely, maybe even for the first time, about the intended meaning behind what they're saying. Okay. Fourth, it gives you valuable information about their exact position. Okay. We already talked about that for a little bit, but fifth, it positions a non-believer in a defensive position, a although they might not know it at the time, while placing you, again, in the driver's seat. You're in control of the conversation. You ask these questions, get them to answer, okay? Kind of direct them to where they need to go, all right? Not to where you want them to go, where they need to go. And where do they need to go? Christ, right? Great Commission, right? That's the overall goal with this, okay? So be sure to pay attention to their responses. If it's unclear what they said, follow up with more questions, all right? Say, let me see if I understand you on this. And then feedback to view to make sure you got it right, okay? Just kind of, to your best, repeat what they said to you, not what you think they said, what they said to you, okay? And don't always just repeat what they just said. If they say, oh, you're intolerant, okay? What do you mean by the word intolerant? I mean you're intolerant. Don't let them get away with that. Don't let them get away with that. They're not explaining what they're saying by that mean. You got to ask more questions, okay? Don't underestimate the power of the force. I mean question. Don't underestimate the power of the question, okay? What do you mean by that? Use it often, okay? You can ask this question all day long. There's no pressure on you, okay? It might annoy the person you're talking to if you just say, what do you mean by that? Oh, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? That will get annoying, but you just kind of have to change it up a bit as you go, right? Right, so, okay. Makes sense? Clear as mud? We're back. 10-second window. We're going to look at the same two that we had before, okay? I'll kind of repeat them, but this time around, I want you guys to come up with the Columbo question to take that conversation to the next level, the level it needs to be. All right, so again, this one's the religious pluralism one, right? Weekly small group, discussion of the sermon. A friend of yours says, well, I think the essence of Christianity is loving God and neighbor. Shouldn't we love God, should we love those outside of the Christian faith? After all, who's to say that Christianity is better than any other religion? Don't all religions usually teach the same thing? Don't judge and love your neighbor? Take a little longer this time around, maybe 3 minutes. First Columbo question. Go. All right. All right, let's reel it in. How'd it go? It went great. Good. I can count on that back row there. Good. Good. All right, much better. That's good. That's good. What Columbo questions do you guys have? Help me understand. That's good though. I mean that's basically what do you mean by that is. Help me understand you. Yeah. That's good. Very good. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah. And again, I wouldn't expect them to be like, all right, let me get out my Quran, let me get out my, get all the text in front of you and start cross. It's not going to happen, But by saying that, 9 times out of 10, the person's going to be like, and they're going to think about it. So yeah, very good. Very good. Anyone else? Here, one more. How about the 10 Commandments? Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So good. What do you mean by that? Very good. Let's do the second one that we had. If we have time, we might do the secret third one. All right. So, waiting for the shuttle. Friend says, didn't you hear President Bush sign that partial birth abortion ban? He didn't have any women present when he signed the bill. He'll never understand. I wish he would just stay out of women's issues. Take a couple minutes. Go. All right. Let's reel it in. Columbo questions. Let's hear them. What you got? Harder? Why? Mm-hmm. Hot button topic, you get in trouble earlier. All right, that's why it was different. Okay. What, say that one again? Are you saying President Bush is sexist? Okay. All right. Remember, it is, but I would be careful about phrasing it that way because, our question is, what do you mean by that? When you say, are you saying that such and such is a sexist? That's borderline asserting something that they have not said. All right. So I would probably not do that route. Try to figure out another way to kind of steer it to where you can get them to clarify on that. But I would not go out and just kind of say that. So, Columbo questions. Excellent. Excellent. Why is it a women's issue, not a human rights issue? Great. Great. Getting them to clarify. Oh, yes, sorry. What you got? Great. Excellent. That's like to a T, Columbo. All right? Yeah, let's go ahead. You seem to have a strong opinion about this issue. What do you think about abortion? What does abortion mean to you? What does it stand for? Get those clarifying questions. That was excellent. Great job. Great job. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. If we have a little more time, maybe I'll give you something to consider as a group as we're dispersing or whatnot. So sometimes the first Columbo question is directed at a specific statement or a topic of conversation. Other times the question can be more open-ended. Okay? I think we saw examples of both of that just then. As this discussion continues, you gently guide the dialogue into a more spiritually productive direction with additional questions as you go along. Okay? So learning how to ask this first question, this is going to be your key to productive conversations. I'm not saying do this, please don't do this, but if this is the only class that you're able to make, you're going to walk out of here with something really good to use. All right? As long as you keep doing it, keep practicing it, you'll get better, your conversations will be more productive, and you'll find yourself having a lot of people around you that actually want to talk to you. All right? So oftentimes people, they're merely repeating slogans. These memes circulate online so quick that people can't catch up with them. And because they're circulating so quick, people aren't really thinking quickly about them. All right? Or even really thinking at all. Okay? So asking these questions, it gets them to clarify, again, what they're trying to say. What do you mean by that? Simplest way to clear up the confusion. Okay? So, got a little self-study here. I guess maybe a crazy person would call it homework. I would just say that it's improving yourself. All right? It's building your own character. So, again, want to be a Columbo, all right? And again, here's that quote from Hugh Hewitt. Ask at least half a dozen questions in every conversation. Parents, do it with coworkers. Parents, do it with kids. Kids, do it to parents. All right? Start asking all the questions. Okay? You'll get to learn who those people are pretty quickly when you do that. All right? What do you mean by that? Or variations of what do you mean by that? That's what we got to practice. Okay? Next week, at the beginning of class, we'll kind of go over how did that go? How did using this go? Did you just talk with family and friends, or did you actually start up something with an unbeliever? Okay? Someone that doesn't share your own worldview. How did that go? So we'll talk about that for a little bit. Let's see here. I think that is what we have. Any questions? Stop it. I knew it was coming from her. I knew it was coming from her. All right. Any questions? Clear as mud. Capiche? Good. All right. Excellent. Got one more for you if you guys want it. You know, Scott, you were talking about hot button issues and how they were a bit harder to handle. It's January 2004. You're sitting at the car dealer waiting with other customers as your cars are serviced. Television news program is on in the same room. Highlights recent same-sex marriages for which activist mayors in San Francisco and New York have issued licenses. Person sitting across from you says, it's about time. These folks love each other. They should be able to get married like everyone else. Remember, this is, we're coming at this with a Christian worldview, okay? The Christian worldview states that every single thing under the sun has to be brought under God, okay? So these questions, we're not just talking about like religious pluralism. We're not just talking about abortion, okay? I would dare say that abortion is the one that, most people when they think of Christians, this is the only one that they really care about, okay? We used it because it usually does come up. It's actually had quite a resurgence in the last year or so. So here's another one. Again, hot button issue. It's about time. These folks love each other. They should be able to get married like anyone else. Let's do 3 minutes, then reconvene. Go. All right. Reel it in. Let's hear your Columbo questions. What we got? Yeah. I think that's great. Again, the only reason why any of this is to succeed is if we go at it with the mindset that we're trying to build a relationship with someone. That's what Jesus did. All right? We got to build relationships with people. So saying, what exactly did you say? All right, right. Okay, so you feel really strongly about this issue. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Why this is obviously really important to you. Can you tell me why? Good, great, good. Anyone else? How do you define marriage? Excellent, good. That's a very good Columbo question right there. Getting them to define what the terms. What exactly it is that we're talking about. Good. One more. Matt stole yours. Okay. It's not stealing. We're all just borrowing, Got a little bit of socialism in here. What do you got? Tripping you all up here. Yeah. There you go. All right. Okay. Next week, we are going to be getting more into the Columbo question, but we're going to learn another side of this one, okay, about what we said we would kind of go over later, and that's reversing the burden of proof, okay? We'll learn more about that next week, but I want you guys all to practice the Columbo question, even if you haven't watched the TV show, because I didn't either. All right, doesn't matter. Practice the Columbo question with everyone. All right, I bet he's still on reruns and stuff like that. All right, thank you guys.